The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our ServiceNow series, where we interview the best and brightest of the industry to share their story, advice, and views on the exciting world of ServiceNow and digital transformation.
You're listening to the Alldus podcast ServiceNow series. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Alan Paris. Alan is the Global Head of Financial Services Risk and Compliance Enterprise Architecture for ServiceNow. Alan, welcome to the show.
And thanks for having me, JP.
So, Alan, we've got a lot to cover. Exciting episode today, but let's start with yourself, please, as we do with all of our guests. Could you give us a little summary of your background in technology, a little bit on your journey from where you started early on, some of the roles you've held along the way, and take us up to where you are today, leading the financial risk department for ServiceNow?
I started my career in the 1980s when the desktop computing was new, when the local area networks were just kind of coming into play. And I rode that whole wave throughout my career from, infrastructure to applications to trading systems and risk management, and then moving into compliance and now into software specifically. So I've spent my entire career in the financial services arena, with some touches around utilities, energy production, healthcare, and life sciences, but mostly in the financial services and banking area. And that's where I'm dedicated now, working with clients to help them implement ServiceNow and get the value from it.
Thank you for that, Alan. So let's jump straight into your role in more details. Obviously, the financial services industry and space has long been a proponent of utilizing ServiceNow, and as more modules came out, there was a greater need for expansion of the platform within your customers. But I want to zone in on the core of what you do, what has been the historic demand and how it's evolved over the years into the current demand that you see from the customers. So help us visualize what that journey has been like from your time being with ServiceNow.
Sure. And if I may go back a few years before that. So ServiceNow, it's been a really interesting evolution, starting with IT service management. It's been known as the ticketing system for incidents and case management. But of course, it's evolved into the enterprise platform, the AI enterprise platform of the 21st century. And basically, we've expanded both horizontally across various applications for IT operations management, IT asset management, and then into the business lines. So things like field service management, customer service management, and CRM, as well as HR service delivery, and of course, governance, risk, and compliance with our interactive risk management system. We've expanded both horizontally as well as vertically. So we've been developing vertical applications for financial services with FSO, financial services operations. And we also have applications for pure plays in technology, telecommunications, as well as pharma, life sciences, and so forth. And that also changes you and expands you as an organization. So when I started with the firm almost 5 years ago, we were about 16,000, 17,000 people. We're now about 27,000, 28,000 people, and revenues have more than tripled since then. And I think, it's been really a fantastic journey. And, of course, the challenges are, as you verticalize, the organization has to organize around that. And you have to, pick your people and your specialties and so forth. So it becomes both a management and an operational challenge, that we're obviously rising to meet those challenges and support our customers as best as we can. And so I'm part of now the customer excellence group, face to face with our customers and working through the challenges they face as they digitize, as they transform their organizations.
That's such a good layout of the broader landscape of the ecosystem. You spend so much time working with these major financial institutions focusing on risk and compliance, which is incredibly complex given the ever-changing needs. What are some of the most common problems that ServiceNow is solving for these institutions? And are there any recent examples that you can share where you're meeting a customer, they're telling you where they're at, you're presenting these capabilities and possibilities with this platform, and what comes out the other side? What impact is ServiceNow having for these customers?
Well, I think, just from a pure play risk perspective, customers that are doing manual RCSAs, risk control self-assessments, that every, financial services firm has to do, they're doing them manually, they're spreadsheet driven, they might be, local database driven. So ServiceNow can automate that entire process on an out-of-the-box basis with integrated risk management. That's just one simple example. Firms face numerous challenges, and one of them is how can they get more efficiency and effectiveness and more productivity out of their employees, and create an environment where a lot of the mundane tasks can be automated or transformed and free up employees to do higher level work. So I think that's one of the major applications for where things like virtual assistant, Now Assist, our AI, agentic AI, and Gen AI come in. Because that can really transform people's jobs. It transforms self-service. It transforms, the way people interact with portals, the way people interact with your customer service and your field service. So I think that those are some really brilliant ways you can overcome, some of these, challenges, both technical and operational challenges. People choose agentic AI because you can really automate and digitize and find ways around, the massive volumes of, for instance, of knowledge base information, or the amount of IT tickets that are submitted monthly, and, working through categorization and working through things like making that available to people on a near instantaneous basis.
Alan, you and I were talking off air just a moment ago about the interactions with customers and a recent example of a bank who wants to start to implement agentic AI. Help us understand what that conversation is like from the request. They know they need it, but where they are and how you take them through that journey.
Yeah. So just from a very practical perspective, companies, and in this particular case, a major bank, want to automate their knowledge base. They want to be able to do intelligent AI-enabled search and AI-enabled, answers to particular queries in terms of finding information for both the actual workers in those particular departments and the employees and the FTE, the full-time equivalent people who are working in the firm. So this is kind of like a tale of two cities. You have one department, the IT department, and another department, the HR department, both of which have taken on agentic AI. And in this case, the HR department has a very strong organization and controls around their knowledge base and their knowledge articles. They have editorial management of the articles. So they've eliminated duplication. They've eliminated duplicate articles. They've eliminated duplicate titles. Everything's been tagged and sorted and categorized correctly. The database is complete. It's accurate. And it's actually a kind of, if you're a technical nerd like me, it's a wonderful thing to behold, because at the end of the day, it's the data that enables the success of the AI. So you have to really have your data act together. The IT department had taken a looser approach to its knowledge management database and to that whole knowledge store. So things, there were duplicates, things weren't as accurately tagged and so forth. So you can imagine once you start implementing agentic AI for AI search and for bringing back summaries of articles and related articles on various topics and so forth. And this is just one use case example. The HR department was very successful in that. It was a clean implementation. There were no issues. Whereas the IT department now has to go back and do a cleanup exercise. And, of course, you see that in areas like, I specialize in financial crime. And so cleaning up customer databases and customer information, that's something that has to be really worked at. And it's, from a regulatory perspective, high risk customers have to be re-examined and renewed on an annual basis. Whereas other customers that are lower risk, it might be every 3 to 5 years. But you still have to keep that data clean if you expect to get good results from AI and using AI techniques around summarization, categorization, segmentation, and risk assignment related to those customers.
Thank you for that, Alan. Such an interesting insight into a tale of two teams, two cities within one customer, and it's a great example of how you have to approach each department and meet them where they are. You and I were speaking earlier about the exciting phase of innovation and development that is currently happening and that is likely going to continue, and how you and the senior leadership at ServiceNow need to keep up with the evolving demand and also the evolving opportunity, speaking to customers, taking in what they're sharing with you, but then also trying to predict what's possible down the road. Can you give us a little bit of insight into what that's like for you and the team as you look at the current capabilities of the ServiceNow platform with the introduction of agentic AI, and then where that can take you over the next few years?
So what I think is interesting is that ServiceNow has been on an AI journey since around 2015 through 2017, where we started doing machine learning and started acquiring pure play AI and natural language processing, text processing, and vision processing, and so forth, types of companies. We now internally use about 250 different traditional machine learning and Gen AI and agentic AI models in our firm that are actively in use. Our last release, we released over 100 AI agents out of the box to support our customers and to support the various applications they use. And so we have AI embedded in the platform in terms of natural language processing, in terms of document intelligence, agentic AI document management. And now through the various apps, you have AI, agentic AI embedded in IT service management, IT operations management, and of course, integrated risk management. But the areas that, are most interesting to me are the ones, in our financial services operations package, which support things like agentic AI for document management, agentic AI for onboarding agents to onboard new customers, agentic AI for deduplication of records or finding duplicate records and so forth. So this can really be built into your whole know your customer anti-money laundering workflow. And I think what's happening is, we're looking at AI not just to automate, but to really transform. Because what's going to happen is, we've gone from business rules and from coded workflows that could be, relatively, they had nesting and they had decision trees and all of that, but they were based on business rules. They were based on code. More and more agentic AI will enable these workflows to be more flexible. Agentic AI will learn, and agentic AI will adjust its behaviors, to transform the way these operations work within a firm. So I think that that's the big promise. But in order for that to happen, there's a big piece organizationally and from an organizational change management perspective. And as I was explaining earlier, from a data management and data cleanliness perspective, there's a whole lot about it that's not about the AI, but that's critical for you to be successful with AI? And I guess, it starts with number one, executive sponsorship. It starts with saying to yourself, you know, it's not our AI strategy. What's our corporate strategy? What do we want to get out of this? What are the business cases and what are the use cases that we really want to transform here that can make a difference to both the bottom line and the top line? And I've been to a lot of AI conferences and AI seminars, and you really see people applying it throughout their processes. You see it, people applying it in marketing, in advertising, sales. You see people managing it, for loan operations, which are critical to banks' operations and revenue. So I think that AI will clearly become more and more pervasive and more part of just the every way we do jobs.
You obviously have such a broad understanding of the financial services space from your long storied career, and as your time now in senior leadership with ServiceNow, you have so many interactions with these different financial institutions from banks and other financial services firms. If you could identify some underlying traits or trends for the organizations who are most successful in change management and implementing these evolving technologies, what are some of the standouts to you that you could point to and maybe offer as advice to other organizations who are not as mature in their journey?
Well, I think organizations that, are the best at driving innovation have adopted a flexible approach to this. They think about things like strategy and organizational change management, first and foremost, not necessarily as an afterthought, that they develop their roadmaps using as much contemporary input as they can to envision what the future of the firm should be like. And I think from a transformation perspective, they don't just look at, automating individual roles or jobs. They look at how they can transform the business using AI and what AI gives them to that effect. And so it's really about how they envision the business and then apply AI to do that, rather than, what's my AI strategy? It's really what's my business strategy, and then how do I apply AI to manage that and to make that happen. And of course it's still early days, right? It's still early days. And like I said, ServiceNow has 100 AI agents right out of the box with our latest release, and within the next year or two, we'll probably have about 1,000 AI agents that'll be automating, workflows and people's jobs and tasks and so forth. And that doesn't obviate the need for the people. There's still people who need to manage those AIs to perform those tasks, but it's going to enable them to focus on higher level stuff. They're going to enable them to focus more on, the creative opportunities that come from having the mundane tasks or automated.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's where I want to take the last part of our conversation, which is your insight and advice to a community of technologists who are looking at what's next and trying to anticipate where the industry is going and where the career opportunities will evolve. So we spend a lot of time speaking to the workforce, the ServiceNow workforce, and we know right now the demand is outpacing the supply for talent within the ServiceNow ecosystem. And we also know there's a push towards industry specialization. So as a senior leader in this space, if you were speaking to a room full of ServiceNow professionals, where would you advise them to focus and evolve their own career so that they can stay current and continue to have an impact within financial services, risk compliance, and the ever-changing landscape?
Yeah, I think it's important to always be learning. And from a ServiceNow perspective, there's a tremendous amount of enablement and training available both on our internal systems and even in places like YouTube, where you can watch, seminars and instructional videos. And so just keep your skill set fresh, be willing to embrace change, be willing to embrace the challenges of introducing new technology. Transformation isn't easy. It takes time and it takes persistence. And I think that also, what I've learned over the years, it's really important to find something you're passionate about and learn about that and then do that as well as you can. I've always enjoyed writing. And so, one of the things I like to do is research and write articles and publish those articles. And over the course of my life, I've probably written and published over 65 or 70 articles. I like to envision what the challenges are that firms face, and so often, having been through so many technology waves and so many fads and movements, I can say that I think AI is really here to stay. And I think that it behooves people to learn as much as they can about it, but also what makes AI successful in a firm, right? And it's not necessarily the agents themselves, but it's how solid is your business case? How solid is your executive sponsorship? How solid are your use cases? How well equipped is your team to implement that? How good is their training and education around that? And then picking the right areas in which to implement where you can get the most bang for your buck.
Yeah. Final question from me, Alan. You referenced there's been so many different waves of technology, but AI is certainly here to stay. There's no doubt about that. And there are going to be some organizations who are seen as leaders within the space. ServiceNow is certainly one of them right now. And we spend a lot of time talking to people in our community who have invested in other platforms who are now interested in making the switch and transition. If you were speaking to somebody who had spent some time working on a different coding language or a different technology platform, and they asked you why ServiceNow, what would you say?
Well, I think ServiceNow is the definitive enterprise platform of the 21st century. And at the end of the day, we're providing enterprise AI to our corporate customers, to small and medium-sized businesses, and to the largest of enterprises. And I think that we're the only company that's providing that platform, that's providing integrated AI, integrated workflows and data, access to third-party systems, access to upstream and downstream systems, all on one platform. So if you believe in the enterprise platform approach, ServiceNow's the way to go.
Well said. Alan, thank you so much for coming on today, my friend. I was very much looking forward to this, and I'm glad we finally got it done. And it certainly didn't disappoint. You're obviously a wealth of knowledge and expertise, and I'm glad we were able to pick your brain a little bit and learn from you. Appreciate you being so generous with your time, sharing your experiences and insight, and look forward to sharing this with our community and hopefully getting you back on the show again in the near future.
Well, thank you, JP. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the reaching out and bringing me on board. And I hope your constituency and the people listening to this enjoy the conversation. I know that I have.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.